In the absence of Mr. Thielacker, would you like me to chair Borough Property?
It's okay with me, Patty, if you want to.
Thank you.
All right, everything is live and started now.
Okay. All right. At this point, I would like to convene the Borough Property Committee of November 4th, 2021. Mr. Morris, do you have an update for us?
First, I have just some reminders that are under outstanding items. There's nothing new to report with any of them. Duquesne Light does have our information, though I do know that as far as the LED light conversion, but I don't know when they're going to schedule anything. So just so you're aware of that. The second item I have is a reminder from last month about the Centennial Clock and the grant that we were talking about. That grant will end in June. And I just want to remind everybody, because it'll take some time to get something ordered. If you have to bid it, it will take time to bid. As far as I know, the one company we were talking with that does other municipal clocks, named Verdin, is not on the state contract. And because it costs, it can cost several $1,000s, that you at least have to get some phone quotes, if not bid the thing. So I just want to remind everybody about that, because it will take time to do that. And then of course it will take time to construct something and install it. My estimate is we have about 14,000 available for the project. So I don't know if anybody wants to talk now about that or not, so I'll just be quiet.
Mayor Porco, do you have any comments on that subject?
No, so we've had some preliminary discussions with one of the vendors, as Steve had mentioned. I think at this point, the steps left in the process is just to simply select a design, and I believe kind of just validate our footprint for the project. And I think the other thing would be to just perhaps gain consensus from council so that we're not just acting unilaterally. The placement of the clock at a high level, I think we all discussed appropriate place would be to place it somewhere on the Borough Buildings campus. I was thinking ideally in the center of the campus, between the two parking lots, in the proximity of the area where like the flagpole and the memorial, where the Veterans Memorial is located. If there's consensus from council that that's the appropriate place to place it, at that point, I think that Steve and I can take next steps, which I would say would be to kind of measure off the area. Once we have our footprint, come down with maybe 2 or 3 options in terms of just the look of the clock.
Yeah.
Present that to council for maybe December's meeting, either committee or general. And then if we vote on it, then we can move forward with the bid. And I think that that leaves us then 6 months to go procure it and have it placed.
Do we have someone who can do draft design for us, that we can look at some draft sketches in December?
I think the clock company offers several options in terms of draft design, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
Is that correct, Steve?
They have different, they have photos with some
Renderings.
dimensions on them and things like that of the kind of styles they have. That's
Right.
what I've seen.
Okay, but we would need to have some idea of where it would be placed on the property. Are you looking at like behind the flagpole in that space, not on the paved place, right in front where people would gather for services or things?
I don't know, somewhere in that vicinity. I think that it would be, we'd have to kind of like look at the space a little more closely and kind of figure out the ideal place to put it. Ideally, someplace where as people are driving by, they can kind of see the time and clock, right? So we'd have to just look at that a little more closely and see, and kind of find an option that's within the budget.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Okay.
All right. So, Mr. Morris, will you be able to take care of getting that material together for our December Borough Property meeting?
I'll try. I don't guarantee it. We have information from the one company. I
Okay.
can go online and show you what they have
Okay.
as far as pictures and things like that are concerned.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
If not, nobody has anything else, that's all I had to report.
Okay, thank you. We have a report from the Recreation Board items from Cindy Sims. Cindy, could you please address us with your information?
Do you want me to just read the minutes from the meeting on Monday?
Well,
Excuse me.
you have some items to report at this meeting. I understand there's some issues you wanted to raise to the Borough Property Committee.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes,
Yes.
Oh, there you are.
Okay, so we have to use the space bar. Okay. I was having some trouble with the connections. We're going to discuss Cindy's report under ops and policy.
okay,
Okay.
great, thank you. All right, then we have an engineer and foreman's report.
Thank you. Does everyone hear me?
Hi, Dave.
The pickleball court, we have not gotten lines painted on it yet, or the basketball court. Traffic paint right now is in short supply. We tried to get quotes and no one was willing to quote. We will attempt to get prices next spring. It's actually a little better to wait at any point because when you have fresh asphalt, you put paint on it, the paint tends to get soaked into the asphalt and not show up as well in the future. So we will wait till spring, and that'll allow the asphalt to cure a bit. And by then, hopefully paint will be back in available supply and we will give some prices. The second item is a repeat. We have the DCED blight remediation grant for $19,800 for 21 Merriam, which has since been taken off the demolition list. And we have not gotten a site to substitute for that. I don't know how long we have until they say that that grant is revoked. It's usually at least a year. So if something comes up, you can let me know and we can get started on that. Final item I have is regarding the bird sanctuary observation deck. We were requested to get updated prices because lumber prices we thought had come down. It turns out that the contractor that I got the initial quote from said that that's not really the case. They haven't really changed much since they spiked. Therefore, if you wanted budget figures for 2022, we do have the two prices we got earlier this year. The wood deck option at $18,200 and the Trex or plastic deck option at $20,500. There was a suggestion, I believe, by Ms. Martin to reduce the size of the deck. If that's the case, we can certainly do that and get a new price, but I need to know how much you want to reduce it by before I can get revised quotes.
Okay.
But if you want budget figures, you'd be safe putting in, say, 20,000 just to be safe.
Okay, well, we'll look at what we have in the budget for that and then advise on the size of the thing depending on how the budget numbers turn out.
That'd be fine.
I know we'll be revisiting that next week. Okay, thank you.
That's all I have. Thank you.
Okay.
Unless there's any questions.
Okay, any questions for Mr. Gilland? No? Okay, could we have a, yeah,
No, I don't have any.
okay. We have the foreman's report, please.
Yeah, there's just two things on there. The Avenue L large piece of playground equipment. I have one quote for that, and I'm going to get two more quotes, but we put that in 2022's capital budget. So I just wanted to make sure you wanted me to proceed to get the other quotes.
Yeah, I think we need to have that. So,
Okay, and then the second thing was the sale of the senior center and the cleanout, and roughly for a time frame there, I guess you guys are talking about the end of February. I mean, depending on how bad the winter is, we may have to back that up a month, but let's see what happens. We'll work for that goal there.
okay. And are there items in there that will be saleable or are most of them disposal issues?
Well,
Let me, even if they're disposable, you have a resolution that requires you to go through a process. You can't
Right.
just throw things away first. And there are some things down there that could be put on municipal bid, as Jimmy has done with trucks and things like that. And that's the thing we have to do. And there's a lot of stuff down there. So it has to kind of be sorted through, and it takes time and it takes some heavy lifting of some things too, as well as getting it on municipal. So
Okay.
that's all part of it.
Okay, we will keep us apprised of progress on that. And I know are we planning to sell the kitchen equipment from there as well?
I think Cindy wants the oven for up at the Westinghouse Rec Center.
Okay,
Yeah, the other kitchen equipment, if it's operable, well, even if it's not, we still have to go through that process before we dispose of it. And, you know, there may be people interested, there may be, you know, borough people who are interested, either residents, some of the officials may be interested. I don't know. We have to go through a process to do that.
okay.
If you want, I can describe the process briefly, but if not, I'll just be quiet.
Well, I think we've had a description of the process in the past, but I think what we'll end up with is a list of items and their estimated value. Is that right? And then it'll go on municipal bid. And before it goes it goes to offer to anyone in the borough who wants it first. Is that right? If we can use it in any other borough locations.
Well, what we do is you have to announce it at a meeting, what you're getting rid of. If it's something that you're saying is of a certain value and inoperable, okay, you announce it and then you ask people who are interested to submit quotes, and you don't advertise other than you mention it at a meeting, and then you post it on the bulletin board so that hopefully people will see it. And of course, since, well, I don't know if the meetings aren't on Zoom necessarily, we're still working that out, but these meetings are. So,
Okay.
you know, we can have that comment available and people can be aware of it. And then after a certain time, if nothing's there, that's the same thing we did with the monitors that we have to dispose of, the computer equipment, which actually we still haven't thrown away yet. Nobody wanted it. Well, a few people took a couple of things for like $3 or $4, but that was it. So we have to get rid of that stuff. You've already you announced it about 3 or 4 or 5 months ago. I don't even remember when now.
Okay. All right. Does anyone have anything further for the Borough Property Committee at this time?
Yes,
Okay.
Patty, actually related, I was raising my hand, but you didn't see me. If we aim for end of February to clean that out, so we should probably aim to have an inventory of the items we want to put on bidding, whatever we do earlier. You know, we can't do that end of February and then expect us to clean it out by end of February. So I think we need to have obviously like a schedule, like planned with our intended deadline in mind. So I guess in my mind, inventory has to happen sometime in January at least. I
Okay.
think Frank has raised his hand too.
Yeah, I have Frank, you have permission to speak?
Thank you. Just wanted to, actually, this is for, I'm sorry, I thought I saw Dave on the line. Is he here? He's here, right?
Yeah, he's still here.
Hey, Dave. If you may recall at the October meeting, we discussed plans with the Forest Hills Community Alliance about putting in place a band shell, right, system for like up at the Westinghouse Rec Center. And what I wanted to do is see if you could come out and meet with me and a few members of the FHCA to look at the space and talk with us about what we might be able to kind of put there from a spacing standpoint. And then we could just take that offline. But if you want to shoot me an email with just some times that you plan to be in the borough over the next week or so, and then we can kind of work around your schedule. So we're not for an extra meeting.
I'll shoot you an email tomorrow with some available times.
Yeah, if you don't mind, just give me like 3 options, 4 options, and then we'll meet and discuss the space.
Yeah, that's pretty exciting option because they do have funds to do that. And that was also one of the things that was recommended by the public in our comprehensive plan, if you recall, that we would have more amenities for cultural engagement of various kinds. And during the centennial year, those put together, in the parking lot occasions that we had were very popular. People wanted to do them. So I think providing a facility to do that with would be a really good addition to the borough. I'm glad.
And more exciting, we actually have the funding. So
yes, we do have funding in place and they have to use it and then they can apply for more. So we'd like to get that in motion so that we can then make those funds available for other things as well.
Yeah.
So thank you. I'm glad they're moving on that.
Yep. So we've already been up once to inspect the site, Dave. I think we need somebody now with the engineer's eye to kind of validate our thoughts on it, and then also just make sure that it fits into play with just the space and the, I'm sorry, with the, within zoning restrictions, et cetera. You probably have a lot more insight into that.
And that will be proposals that you'll have to get bids for, design bids, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, we've decided that since we're using public monies, we should be
Right.
soliciting for it. And depending, we may even engage Mr. Pfaffman if he's willing to work with us, just to make sure that it kind of ties in and blends with the borough building to make it look a lot more cohesive and tied all together.
Perfect. Okay. Anything else for
Thank
anything else for the good of the order on this committee?
Yeah, me.
Okay.
Hello.
Yes.
The senior center, regarding that, we've already started taking photos of some of the material that's there. Staff has already gone down. Jim and I are going to go down too soon. I don't know when exactly, but soon. We've been down there several times already. That's how we know, for example, we can get a stove out of there, hopefully, if we can get it moved. So, we had, just so you know, we have not been just ignoring it. We have not been waiting. And when we have our staff meeting next Wednesday, I'll check with staff and see if they've discovered anything or if there's anything additional that we can use up here or move. We already have moved some things. We already are listing some things.
Okay. Thank you. I think that's all for this committee then. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Patty.
Okay, if you give me a few seconds, I will move to Public Works in a few seconds. Okay, Mr. Gore, I'm good if you're okay with Public Works.
Ready whenever you are, Steve. Thank you.
Okay, first manager's update. Three Rivers Wet Weather did not send their usual monthly update. And just to refresh your memory, I've been keeping this on this agenda and also on the business meeting agenda as a report, because we are supposed to make sure we pass on information about the status of sewer work and sanitary sewer issues and things like that, as well as storm sewer. We're supposed to try to make that public. That's why we put it in our newsletter, et cetera. So that's the reason why I keep showing these things on this agenda as well as on the business meeting agenda. So when they just had their conference this week, that's probably why there's no update. If there's one in time for next week's committee of the whole meeting, I'll put it on there. If not, we'll just ignore it until December. The second item I have, PennDOT culvert work. Excuse me. Two items. First, they did have an environmental meeting, and Mr. Gilland attended, as well as Mr. Thielacker, Mr. Jim Thielacker, that is. And I attached the brief minutes notes that they sent us from that meeting to the notes I gave you, so you can take a look at them. There's not a whole lot there. The bigger item is the tree issue. Don Branzel will report on this next week, but he and Joe from Carl's met with PennDOT on behalf of the borough because they are anxious to start removing trees in the area. They're not ready to start the culverts yet, but they need to get equipment, of course, moved, and it's going to take time to do all this stuff. So rather than just have them simply remove trees, we sent those two down to meet with them. And PennDOT so far seems to be open to the idea that they will take our recommendation for trees we think they should remove, trees we think they should prune, and of course for replacements. So Joe and Don are working on a letter to send them. They're going to try to start that in this month before Thanksgiving, if they can, removing or adjusting trees. And that's going to be actually along a lot of Ardmore, including the area below Centurion and St. Maurice, those areas are going to be doing some work with trees. Dawn and Joe were concerned because some of the work they were talking about was just pruning trees. And they said that once they prune them the way they were talking about, the trees would probably die in a few years and they'd be our responsibility. Dawn can fill you in more on this on Tuesday night, but I just want to let you know that was going on this past week. And I met with Joe and Dawn. We've looked at what's going on, and they're preparing a letter to send to PennDOT about this. But PennDOT wants to move pretty quickly, so I wanted to alert you to this We're hoping they're going to follow our recommendations. They seem open to that so far. But we'll let you know and keep you informed as much as we can. Although again, they're going to move sooner rather than later. Does anybody have any questions for me about that, my report?
I would like to mention that another item that has come up is that there are borough sanitary sewers that are in the way of these culverts in 2 of the 3 locations. And when we met last month with PennDOT on site and their contractor, they noted that the relocation of those sewers to be out of the work zone will require a small piece of property. 2 private property owners will have to give us an easement for the relocated sewer. 2 of those 3 locations. We are in the process of preparing a legal description and plan of where those easements would be needed. The property in question in both cases is a very steep hillside or riverbank. It's of no use to the property owners. I don't anticipate that they would see any value in the easement. It's certainly not developable land that they would have any problem with us putting the sewer there and restricting future development. But just so you know, we will be getting those easements to the solicitor to begin the process of acquiring the right for the new relocated sewer to be on private property. It's on private property now. It just has to shift about 5 feet to be out of the way of the culvert, new culvert.
Patty?
I would be concerned if they know that the pruning that they need to do is so severe that it would kill the trees. I think they have to be responsible for replacing those trees. They can't
Well,
just say, well, we'll prune them and they're going to die, but it's your problem if they die. I think
That's
if
what-
they know that that pruning is so severe that the trees will die, they need to be responsible for replacing them.
That's what we're telling them. The question is, will they do what we ask? That's what we're telling them now. Does anybody else have anything for me on that? Frank? Mayor?
Yep, with the relocation of the sanitary lines, Dave and Steve, I think it's important that we have some sort of a plan in place to conduct our own inspection of the relocation. I don't know, maybe in conjunction with Jim, I'm not sure, but it just kind of, given our history, right? Anytime we kind of relocate something like that, it could be problemsome for us downstream of the work. And since we're not overseeing the work technically, right? It's a state job. I think they're more motivated by getting to the end of their project. I just want to make sure that we have somebody there kind of eyeballing the work and making sure that it's not going to come back on us. Because once they complete project and pull out, it becomes our issue to resolve, right?
I would agree that that's important, but I would also note that the sewer in question is also the sewer that Alcoastan will be taking over. Hopefully within the next year, they will be taking ownership of it, but we certainly don't want to cause any problems with them either. So I agree that somebody, either Jim or someone from my office, should be inspecting when they are doing that sewer work.
Thank you.
I don't have anything else for my report, Mr. Gorel, so no, and nobody apparently has anything else for me, so I'm done.
All right, Dave, before we get into your report, I just wanted to touch base on, it's not under your foreman report or the engineer's report, I mean. The Avenue A, it could be under Jimmy's too, but the extensions on the sewer grates, drain grates, storm sewer grates on Avenue A, I was down there again today. I just think it's going to be problematic in the winter months for Jimmy and his crew for plowing. And 2 or 3 of those really need extensions up. I mean, I hit both of them in my truck, or 2 or 3 of them in my truck today. I mean, they got to be 3 or 4 inches below grade of the new paving surface. So I just want to know, is there a time frame on these? I know they had to be ordered or custom ordered, and I know stuff is obviously backlogged. I mean, being in construction, I know stuff's taking longer, but do we have a time frame on these? Do we know if we're going to get them in before the end of the year? What's the deal going on with that?
Is that something Jim ordered?
No, it was something the paving company. I don't know if you told
Or
me
is
this.
that, you talking about with the paving that was
Yeah,
done?
I don't know if you told me or Jimmy told me, but they said that they ordered the rings or whatever that have to go on the top of them.
Mr. Grohl?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yeah, yeah. Hey, Dave. Yeah, Joe's talked to them a couple times and they're supposed to be coming in here. I guess we'll have to touch base with Joe again. They're aware of it. And I'm pretty sure you folks are holding some money back. They haven't gotten full payment for the paving program yet.
Yeah, I'm more concerned with you, Jimmy, in the winter months. I mean, that's got to be detrimental to the plows and the equipment. And I mean, it's just going to be a nightmare if we get any kind of snow or ice in this winter. I mean, with that sitting 3 or 4 inches below grade, the stuff's going to sit in there and freeze. It's just going to be, it's going to be a nightmare. It's going to be like hitting a pothole in the middle of the road. So that was my only concern. I just didn't know if we had a time frame, but if we can reach back out to them and figure out, if they have a lead time or anything, an ETA on these rings, try to get them installed before winter. I think that'd be best.
Yeah, I'll check with the contractor and see if they have any word on when they expect those risers to come in.
Thank you. Dave, you can continue with your report. Sorry, I just wanted to touch on that before your report because I mean it falls under both of you guys.
Thank you. The first item I have is the MS4 detention pond project behind the park and ride lot on Avenue B. There is no movement from DEP yet on the permit that was submitted. We're still waiting for their approval. Everything's backed up with them. They are, I believe, may still be working from home. Some of them are back in the office, but not everyone. Second item, the Fall Run Interceptor project was awarded by council at last month's meeting. We're in the process of getting contracts signed and bonds and insurance in place, and construction should be underway within the next month. The Ashley Court Storm Sewer project has been completed. The contractor completed his work. The concrete contractor did his restoration, and the borough has done the asphalt restoration and the landscaping restoration. So that project is now 100% complete. And the last item is just the leftover from last month about the 302 Cascade water problem, and that we are recommending that for 2022 that 496 feet of the sanitary sewer under the house be lined. And I believe we did put that in our recommended sewer budget as an item to be done next year. And I don't know if Public Works has had a chance to televise that line, Jim?
No, our camera truck was down and we just got it fixed. So it's on my list to do here.
Okay. I think we're past the season of heavy rains, so it's not a urgent priority at this point, but I'd like to get it done before spring. That's all I have to report unless there's any questions.
Any questions for Dave? No questions. Okay, Jimmy, you want to go ahead with your foreman report?
Okay, I just got our list of projects for coming up for this month in November. And then the second thing is you folks approved in the 2022 budget for purchasing some decorative light poles for down along Ardmore. I've talked to them and I got a quote, but they're about 10 to 12 weeks out. I was wondering if we could order them now, and they're not going to be into after the first of the year. Plus, he said because of the holidays, a lot of these factories and stuff shut down for a week. So I'd like to get permission to order these decorative light poles now, and then so we have them for the springtime.
Just to correct, the 2022 budget hasn't been approved yet. Yes, the stuff is in there, the numbers are in there, but nothing's been approved yet, just to correct that.
Sorry about that.
Yeah, I don't have an issue with that, and correct me if I'm wrong, but we do keep a few of these on backlog, kind of in the stockpile. Correct, Jimmy and Steve. So I think that when something occurs in the Ardmore, whether it be a traffic accident or whatever the case may be, we have to have these because we need to get these back up. I mean, we can't have wires exposed or a pull down or cones over it. So I don't have an issue with ordering these and keeping these on hand, extras and whatever needs to be replaced at the time.
Okay, I think that's all I have.
Okay. And the Tulip Alley paving complaint, which I don't know that I was aware of this or saw this come in. So, Steve, do you have anything? Was this
That was from the October meeting, Bill.
Oh, and I missed the October meeting.
There was a resident who complained.
Okay. And
The Bill did talk with Bill Tomasic. Mr. Tomasic did talk with him. He could report on it.
Bo, do you want to give a brief description?
Yeah, it's an alley behind, what's that, Mini Mart or whatever. Joe's been asking about this for a long time. He wants the alley paved and so on. And at the meeting, my comments are I'm opposed to it because it's an alleyway and if, people can still navigate it without much of a problem. So that was my opinion. That's been my position for years now. So you can go down and take a look at it.
This is the alley that runs parallel to the Ardmore behind the Speedy Mart, is what you're saying?
Yes.
Parallel to Halsey.
Okay. All right.
right.
Yeah, I will. I'll take a look at it. The only other further issue I have is I was approached by two residents in the past week that said that we were replacing one of the delineators at the Dunkin' Donuts. And this is news to me. I saw that the delineator was down for a while, but Steve, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but were we ever compensated for the public works time for installing the delineators when we put them in? I believe that the original correspondence between us and Heartland or Duncan at the time was they would purchase the stuff and we would install them, but now we're maintaining them. And were we ever compensated for the time for our public works guys to be down there installing the delineators the first time? Did we ever get that? Was that ever paid to us?
I would have to look, Bill. I don't have an answer for you right now.
Okay. All right. So that's my first question. My second thing is I mean, we're performing work, our public works and our funds are being used on private property that is for profit. It doesn't matter where it's at or what it's going for. I mean, we shouldn't be replacing these. I had the first resident tell me he saw green shirts. The second resident told me that he saw a truck there and guys with green shirts, public works shirts, reinstalling the delineator that was knocked down or broken or whatever it was. So, I mean, we should not be doing this. This is, again, on private property. So this is a Dunkin' concern. And when that delineator gets knocked down or something were to happen, I mean, Dunkin' Donuts or Heartland needs to be, they need to take care of that. That is not a public works issue. It's not a Forest Hills Borough issue. That is private property. We should not be doing that. I don't even know who approved that or who said to go and replace that. That makes absolutely no sense to me. So if anyone has any objection to that, I mean, there should be no work done on anyone's private property that is not discussed in this meeting, let alone it shouldn't even happen. I mean, again, that's a for-profit business and we're performing work on for-profit business property. That's private property. So who approved this? Why was it approved? Why are we still doing work there? I mean, I don't understand.
Can I answer the question? You've asked it 5 times.
Yeah, that's
so the delineators, when we first installed them, we agreed with Dunkin' Donuts. I believe that at the time, Nina was the president of the borough. And we said, we will install them, you purchase them. And I think we even purchased a few extra. We put them in borough right away. So we're not technically going onto their property and doing work for them. So that is the basis of how we have been working on those things. So when somebody knocks them over, we go over and simply put it back on, or we have to install another one. I don't know how much time it takes, but it's certainly not hours or days or anything like that. It's a 15-minute job possibly. I'm just explaining, and let me finish, please. So that has been the agreement. That is what we have been doing.
Okay, so on that point then, since we're under Public Works, so under that point then, the first 5 foot of everyone's parcel in the entire borough is technically the borough right away. So
Yeah,
now,
and we put a wall in for somebody. We had to go over there. I believe it was on Barclay, and we went in and we took a wall down, and it was a wall that was installed by the owner. We took it down even though he installed it, but because it was that on our right of way when we took it down over here? Okay, so it was on our right of way. We went in there. I don't know how far up the hill we went, but we took the wall down for the guy, which we didn't have to do, but we did it.
okay, that's fine. And to the same point is, the first 5 foot of everyone's parcel in the entire borough is the borough right away. So now we need to have Jimmy Thielacker and the Public Works crew. They need to cut everyone's grass in the first 5 foot of the entire borough. That's basically what you're saying there. They're a for-profit business on private property. They need to maintain their entire parking lot. That is part of their parking lot. And they need to have those delineators there because we're having traffic issues with the illegal turns out of that parcel. So why are we going on to private property and replacing delineators on private property for profit? A for-profit business, we're replacing delineators with public funds. We're using public funds and public time to replace delineators on private property for-profit business. So that's my point. So now Jimmy needs to cut the grass in the 5 foot of everyone's parcel throughout the entire borough. That would make it fair to every other borough resident since we're doing it for Dunkin' Donuts. Does that make any sense? I don't think so. So from now on, we don't need to be doing any other work there. They need to do it and maintain it themselves. And Steve, for the next meeting, for committee of the whole or whatever, I'd like to know if Dunkin' Donuts ever reimbursed us for our construction labor to install the delineators from when we installed the delineators for them on their property when they purchased them. I would like to know that. And that concludes Public Works.
Actually, I have one thing to add to Public Works, if it's okay.
Yep, go ahead, Frank.
Okay, just to let you know, received a complaint from a resident on Atlantic Avenue, inquiring about just the quality of her street. She lives at the bottom end of Atlantic, just outside the park, Cook Park area. She said that there's a lot of potholes, hasn't been addressed, so I would just ask that we put this on next Public Works Committee for discussion and something to consider for the 2022 paving program.
I believe Frank and Dave can correct me if I'm wrong, if he's still on, but I believe that was one of the streets that is going to be considered in the next year or 2 years. I believe it was one of the streets that may have got axed off this year due to funding. With the paving cost. I could be wrong, but I think that was one of the streets that was actually on.
Yeah, I mean, I went ahead and
It's all concrete. It's all concrete down there.
Yep.
So it is.
And I went down and
one
checked
of
it
our
out.
older streets.
It's certainly a valid complaint, and you're welcome to go do the same, Bill, but it's just around the corner from you. But it's a valid concern, right? It's just a question of, where does it stack rank on the list of streets for next year? But I think the complaint is merited, right? So just putting it on your agenda is all.
Yep, completely agree. And
Yep.
Dave, if we can note that for 2022 paving, but I do believe that is on your short list for 2022.
Yeah, I've made a note on it. I don't remember whether it's on the list for next year or not. We have a preliminary list which is mostly leftover, as you said, alternates from this year that did not have adequate funding to do. But I will, I've made a note of it. I will put it on for consideration for 2022.
Thank you both. That's all.
Thank you. Steve, that concludes our report.
Okay, give me a few seconds and we'll move to office and policy.
Good night, everyone.
Thanks, Dave. Good
Good
night.
night, Dave.
Okay, Mr. Lawrence, I'm ready for office and policy if you're okay with that.
Please go ahead, Mr. Morris.
Okay. Okay, I have a few items to report to you. First, with the notes I gave you, I included a draft meeting calendar as I usually do this time of year for 2022. I show typical dates for meetings, show some alternate dates. In blue, I show where there may be conflicts. In orange, I show holidays that I'm aware of. I'm probably not aware of every single holiday, but holidays that I'm aware of that may possibly influence a meeting date. I also gave you a memo with that. It's attached to your ops and policy report. And the reason why I did that, of course, was I need you to look at it and come back with discussion of it in December at that meeting so that I can go ahead and advertise meetings for 2022. We always do the whole list of meetings, including all the boards and committees. And I've sent them a list too. Excuse me. I've sent them a list as well to ask them if they want to keep their same meeting dates or not. Some are still doing Zoom and some are starting to do live right now. And both are okay based on what the solicitor has told us. So it just depends on what they're doing, what the meeting is. But I have contacted all the other boards and asked them to look at that so that I have an idea and can advertise them. Of course, council has first choice. In the memo, you'll note that in January, the organization meeting is the first Monday, which is January the 3rd. And in that month, I also blocked out 2 dates for committees. Usually what happens is council has an organization meeting and a regular meeting. And then in that month, because of those 2 meetings, they just have all committees meet on one night. And I usually run the meetings, all 6 committees. We eliminate committee of the whole because there's no need to do that since everybody is attending and all 6 other committees are there. So I have 2 alternate dates for that as well. And I did send this to those folks who were nominated and then were elected yesterday to seats on council for them to look at so we get their input. Unfortunately, they can't vote on it, of course, right now. I shouldn't say unfortunately, they can't vote on it right now. And it's always practical if we can to try to schedule that these meetings ahead of time because it saves us having to advertise every month and et cetera. So take a look at that. The only other note I would have on here is the same one that I had last year as a personal note. As you know, I was supposed to be not here this week and next. I was supposed to be on vacation with my granddaughter, and of course the COVID thing screwed that up. So I was going to miss at least 1 meeting. We've moved that to next year sometime, tentatively next November. I just don't know. But again, I plan on going. So I just wanted to mention that. It may mean that I'll miss another meeting or so. I don't know. But that's what some of the blue highlights are for, as well as other conferences or other meetings that may be conflicting with council. So please take a look at this, bring it back. Well, bring it back. You have it electronically. I'll probably put it on the agenda again next month. So if you just take a look at it and we can talk about it in more detail then. I just wanted to give you that explanation as to what I had on there now. Does anybody have any questions real quick about that? You shouldn't, because you haven't had a chance to look at it yet. I'm sorry, that dog doesn't count. In any case, on item B, end of the year reminders, I forgot in September, I usually give you this list in September of reminders of actions that have to happen at the end of the year. So I put the full list on there, even though this is November. I should have included in October too, and I forgot. So in September, we already did the first thing, the MMO approval, the trash contracts in progress. Hopefully, Mr. Corbett will have some information on that next Tuesday when he's at Committee of the Whole. And I know the Shell Fund agreements are in progress as well. And I know that was discussed previously already. I assume that will continue probably in Committee of the Whole next week. In October, I forgot that usually council passes a motion to allow me to advertise for potential vacancies on committees and boards. So I'll probably put that on the agenda this month. The other thing that's key in October is usually you start looking at a citizenship award nominee. That's the Marty O'Malley Citizenship Award. And that's not exactly the title, but that's what it is. I haven't gotten any. And since Cindy's on here and had that advertised in Tree City Times, I don't know, Cindy, do you recall, did you get any feedback from anybody about citizens that might be nominated by any chance for the city? No, okay. I haven't received any either. So I just wanted to mention that to you. That usually happens in October. You've already got the first draft of the budget. The second draft will come next week. And usually at the meeting in November, you give me approval to advertise the budget, advertise a tax ordinance. Although last year, I think we did it by resolution, but Mr. Corbell can explain the ins and outs of that next week. And we usually formally in November approve the Citizenship Award nominees so we can notify them to be at the meeting in December. So I'm not sure where you want to go with that, but please take a look at this list. As a reminder, I will include it on Committee of the Whole again next week. So you have some time to consider stuff if you don't want to comment right now. I don't really have anything more to say about that item. So unless you have a question for me, I'll move on.
Yeah, and just quickly, at this point, we don't have any nominees for the Citizenship Award. So I'm suggesting it's probably likely we will have to delay awarding that till in January. Just as a suggestion. Right.
That's of course up to council, and there's still some time, but that's up to you, however you want to go about it.
Yeah. If I can just encourage everyone to give it a thought in the next couple of weeks, because we don't have a lot of time if we want to do that in December. But if it doesn't work out, we'll have to delay it a month. And I don't think that's the end of the world.
If you just want to email me suggestions, if you have any, or if anybody hears of any, and you want to email them to me, I'll make sure I put them on the agenda for Committee of the Whole next week if we get any. The other items I have here, item C on my notes, committee vacancies. I just want to remind you of where there were vacancies. I think I showed this to you last month too. Really no comment, but these are some vacancies that already exist in addition to potential vacancies to see if once people determine whether they want to continue to serve when their term is up at the end of February, they will, there may be additional vacancies as well, but you can see that those are the vacancies we have right now. And we will advertise them along with any other potential vacancies once I get your approval to go ahead with that after you do a motion on November 17th. The item D that I have on my notes, record retention resolution. Every year we follow the state's requirement for disposing of old records. And what required is that we put a list in a resolution that council approves. And usually it happens after we've already disposed of them. And that's the case again this year too. Frequently we dispose of them early in the year, but with the pandemic, et cetera, we really haven't gotten around to that. And we didn't necessarily have a shredding company who was going to be able to come out right away anyway and do that, but they have been here. And you can see the list attached to the notes I gave you. It's typical stuff that old files that we're allowed to get rid of. There are some things you can never get rid of, but you are allowed to get rid of certain old personnel records and other records. You can take a look at the list if you want, but there'll be a motion to approve that resolution on November 17th. And the last item I have is outstanding items. I know that Mr. Corbell I believe is working on the dye testing ordinance. We've already talked about that in committee of the whole. I believe he has a draft that he's advertising, so he can talk to you about that then. And the main thing to change there was that we had originally the borough responsible for testing, and that's not the case anymore. The homeowner is responsible to get those tests done, or the property owner, I should say. And so that's what's going to be changed, and he can answer your questions next week when he's here. The last thing was the Tree City Times report from our intern. If you recall last month, this committee rather decided that you should begin reviewing, but not rush to do that. You should begin reviewing some information about that and be ready to potentially make changes within a year or maybe two. But you had agreed that it made sense to explore options and sketch out what you wanted to do rather than just jump into something. I had asked Cindy to give me some highlights of things with that, and I included some of those highlights on my notes here as far as the breakdown of costs from Cindy regarding the issues, the 4 issues that we print right now and mail. So I know that you haven't seen this yet. Please take a look at it. Of course, I will continue that on the agenda for next month. We can work on that further as we go, but I know you're interested in potentially moving to all digital. Cindy's fine with that. There are some things that we'll need to drag her in on too, but we don't necessarily need to talk about that right now until you come up with a little bit more direction. So I'll be giving you bits of information as we go along, so we keep this fresh and can move on it without delay, but still take time to make sure we do it correctly. I know one of the things you had also suggested was next year, potentially having a survey in a future issue of the Tree City Times. And I think Cindy would want to know specifically some things that you would want to ask besides the obvious things of, are you interested in a digital version? So you might want to start thinking about that too, and we'll keep that on a future agenda as well. Does anybody have any questions?
Yeah, just to let you know, over the weekend, Angelo did send me a draft set of suggestions for a questionnaire, and I have not had a chance to look at it. So I'll get with him as a first step to look at that, and then we can talk beyond that.
Good. And I will obviously keep this on the agenda in the same place. And if I have any new information to give you, I know Cindy gave me a couple of other notes I didn't include on here. I'll see if they make sense to also include, and I'll put them on your agenda in December.
Okay.
Ms. DeMarco is raising her hand, Mr. Lawrence.
Okay, please.
You're muted.
Please go ahead.
You're muted, Patty.
I just want to note that when we've done some surveys to the public, I find that the list that's used for distributing the Tree City Times is based on the sewer bill. And we find that a number of the people who receive that are basically the building managers, and it doesn't reach the occupants of many of our apartment buildings as a result. And so when we did surveys of people that were based on their either tax or residency addresses, we got a different mix of people responding. And I think that's one of the issues we need to look at, is the manner of distribution of what we mail out, because there have been some significant discrepancies between who actually gets materials that we send compared to who we intend to target. So I'd like to include that distribution mechanism as part of this review of our newsletter distribution.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anything else? Okay, Steve.
I don't have anything. I'm done, Mr. Lawrence.
Okay. There's the issue that came up with the council's decision regarding cutting the fees for the pool. I'm just going to summarize here. We first brought that up, and I think came to a tentative decision 2 months ago in committee that we wanted to cut the fee 50%. Last month, I believe, we did all discuss and all agree that we concurred with that decision to move ahead, cutting it 50%. So I think at this point, there's nothing else to litigate on that question. So I think this issue should be finalized in Cal. So I pushed the issue to Cal at this point. Marcus, did you have anything to add? I thought.
Sorry, I was
Yeah.
mute. No, I think
Oh.
we pretty much made our point, and I think our main argument was it's a taxpayer-funded pool, and we want to make it more accessible for our low-income-based people. Lots of people can't afford 350 or whatever it is per family.
Yeah.
So I totally agree
And-
to put it to Cal.
Yeah, we'll push it to Cal, and if anybody would like to go back and look at the material from the last couple committee meetings last month, that's available. Second, on the open burning, did anyone get a chance?
Jack, before
I'm
you go
sorry.
on, can I comment on the?
Absolutely.
Okay, I really want to take some time because Cindy Sim is here. All right, and this was supposed to be something that I agree, we've already made a decision. However, I ended up, and I hope that every council member ended up getting the Forest Hills Recreation Board minutes because I want to take some time to go through this. Did everybody get a copy of that?
Yes,
Okay.
we got the email.
So as Marcus indicated, the reason this came up, and I am the person that suggested the 50% reduction. All right, I started it, so if anybody wants to blame somebody, they can blame me. And there were two reasons why I did this. Number one, I was told that the rec board was asking for an additional 20 families from outside the borough to be added to the pool numbers. So that would total 50. All right. Now, this president's report, and I believe that's Barry Layton. Cindy, am I correct?
Yes.
So the president's report says the following, okay? With no consultation or recommendation from the borough board, council has decided to reduce the cost, blah, blah, blah. Well, that is our duty. That is our responsibility. That lies totally with us. Now, in terms of consultation, we have a liaison or contact, Tom Thielacker, and he was at the meeting and he agreed with us as well that we should reduce it by 50%. So that is under the president's report number 3, number 1. Paragraph number 2, he makes a statement that board members have heard for many years that council has always been concerned about the cost associated with the pool. Okay, the board has been asked to consider ways of increasing revenue for the pool. I've been on for 15 years, and every year we do a budget. We never directed the rec board to find a way to balance that budget, to find ways to end up getting more monies in terms of revenues. We understand it's amenity, it's an amenity. We believe that we want our residents to be able to use this amenity, and the fact that only 10% of our people use it was another reason why I brought it up. All right. Number 3, the board does not understand why council is now suddenly considering cutting the pool. And then they say it will end up straining the pool capacity and human resources. So it sounds like to me, well, if we get all the residents in the borough to use the pool, then somehow the people that actually pay for the pool through their taxes, which is involuntary, all right, are going to be a problem. We don't know what the final result's going to be. We don't know if more people are going to come or not. But to suggest somehow that we're going to have more people using the pool that live in the borough and that's not acceptable, I have a hard time understanding that paragraph. Moving to number 4. Now they're talking about the pool membership doubling. Okay, more crowded pool, less parking, more strain on the staff to guard more people swimming. My goodness gracious, how awful that would be for the residents of the borough of Forest Hills to actually cause those kinds of problems. The next paragraph. they say that what the board asked, what is driving this decision? Well, let me give him some numbers. The median income for Forest Hills is $71,709. The per capita income is $43,000, $353. And we also have a new component, which is called Ellis. We have 29% of the people that fit that category. And that means that there are people that are asset limited and income constrained, and they're employed. All right? So these are people, and look at those numbers. Look at those numbers. All right? I don't think some people understand what's going on in terms of the income associated with a lot of the people who live in this borough. Now, he says in the paragraph 6, how does council intend to cover the gap in the pool revenue? Raise taxes? Raise taxes? We haven't raised taxes in 15 years. As a matter of fact, we put into that pool a few years back over $380,000. And that doesn't even include all of the work that the Public Works did, all right, and weren't charged for. We put over $200,000 into the tennis courts. Where is that money coming from? Wilkins Township? It's coming directly from the residents in this borough. They paid it, and that's almost a full year of taxes that went straight to the pool and the tennis courts. And we never raised taxes. And then the last paragraph, they state that they're talking about a strategy to increase tennis membership. We had people in the meeting that were, I don't know if they're on that rec board or not, but they are participants in the swim pool and so on. And those people sat here in the meeting and they agreed with everything we were doing without any complaints. So the idea that this has to be a revenue maker, that we have to somehow talk about finding monies when we've been funding this all along, and that doesn't include all of the work that Jimmy Thielacker in the Public Works Department did. They clean the filters, they fill the tanks, they come up there and cut all the grass. That is never taken into consideration as part of the pool budget. I am unhappy with this particular statement that he made at this meeting with these people. I expect more from people that are in these positions. But it is our responsibility, it is our duty, it is our obligation, and it is our decision, not Barry Layton's. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you, Mr. Tomasic. And may I say I concur with your entire analysis of that document. I agree entirely. So if we can move on to the burning ordinance.
Jack,
Unless, yes.
Before we move on to that, Barry is on this, and I'm not saying I disagree with you or Mr. Tomasic, but at the end of the day, our heads are in a bunch of other places on council, and he deals with this on an everyday basis every month. They're meeting on this. So I'd really like to hear his opinion on this and why he made those statements, since he's on this meeting. If he wasn't on this meeting, it would be a different story. But since he's on this meeting, I'd like to hear his perspective and his points. If he'd like to speak, I mean, I don't know if he wants to or not. But if you
actually, I think I've pretty much decided that everyone's had their point of view, and this is going to move to Cal. We can discuss other input on Cal, but at this point, I think we need to shut it down. Thank you, though. Okay, open burning. I don't know if anyone's had the opportunity to look at the Allegheny County document. If anyone has any input from the committee, any thoughts on this moving forward?
I thought the same thing, like we decided already on that. I'm surprised
Okay.
it's still on the agenda.
Yeah, so my suggestion is we get the draft ordinance can we get the draft ordinance and address it this month in the business meeting? Vote on it?
If it's possible, we should, in my mind.
I think it should be, because it's basically, I can talk to Mr. Corbel, it's going to be basically a cut and paste.
Yeah, so as soon Steve Corbett can do it, either this month or next month, we should do it.
Okay. All right, Mr. Morris, if that's okay, I'll contact Mr. Corbel, and if we can get it on the November business meeting, we'll do that. And if not, let's do it in December.
Sure, he would be the one to ask. So yes, that's fine.
Okay, I'll do that. Does anybody have anything else? I have one thing. Anybody else?
I have something, Jack. I'm not sure if this is the appropriate committee or if I should have it, if I should mention it at public safety, but I was talking with my contact at the Allegheny County Health Department, and she can make booster shots available, like a booster shot distribution available in Fort Stills, probably through the use of like a mobile unit, much like we did when we did some COVID testing initially. It would obviously, we'd have to, so I'm not sure if we want to talk about it here or to maybe perhaps discuss it at committee of the whole. Maybe that would be the better place to discuss it early next week.
Okay, unless it's time sensitive, and if we decide something tonight that can push it faster, would it?
It could. I mean, it's just a question of timing and coordination. Really, it's just about, is there any opposition to the idea from any of the council? And if there's not,
certainly don't have any. Marcus is here on public safety right now, and he's on this committee, so maybe he can jump in right now.
I think it's more a committee of a whole issue, but it doesn't matter to me, public safety or committee of a whole.
Tell you what, let me do this. I'll go ahead and just start to gather some information in terms of like the mechanics of it, right? And the logistics of it. I'll have that prepared for committee of the whole, and then Steve, would you mind just placing it on Cal for next week?
Sure.
Thank you. Sorry, Jack, go ahead. Apologize.
No, that's fine. That's fine. And the faster we can go ahead with that would be wonderful. I'm sure the residents would be really grateful. This is an FYI only, and it'll come up officially in Ops and Policies next month. But we had talked about, or I had suggested that we formalize methods for residents to memorialize either people who passed away or done something significant in the borough, particularly along the lines of a memorial bench. Mr. Morris found some samples from a couple municipalities around the country who've done exactly this. And some of them are very, very nice, well done. Obviously, they got their lawyers in on it and thought of all the contingencies. So unless anybody has an objection, I'm going to put together a draft of that I can distribute, and we could talk about in Ops and Policies in December. It would, initially, the idea is because someone asked about a memorial bench, but it doesn't have to be limited to that. But basically, we would lay out, hey, you want to do something to celebrate a life or to acknowledge some great contribution. Here's our suggestions that we officially endorse, and the cost, your cost, and the restrictions, and everything else. So unless you have any thoughts on that, I'd like to put that together and propose it, a draft next in December. I'm hearing crickets, so I guess that's okay.
Yeah, I'm okay.
Anything else?
Sorry. I'm good.
Okay, I believe that's everything for this committee, Mr. Morris.
Just give me a few seconds and we'll start public safety.
Okay.
And I'm good, Mr. Oberdinger.
Yeah, whenever you're ready, you can start.
Okay.
Just update.
Okay. Just two quick items. Well, actually, the first one is outstanding items. We're working on restoring cameras at the Public Works Garage, and we're also working on a couple of camera issues up here. It's a little slow process because we have to see what equipment we have and whether we can get equipment in for certain things, but I'll just keep you up to date on that. I think I mentioned that last month as well. Really nothing new. The only other new item I have is that this will be the end of our 2-year agreement with Hoffman Kennels for stray dogs. And I checked with the chief, and he was on this meeting, and he did agree that Hoffman's is probably the best around that we can have to do this. So they're proposing another 2-year agreement, which council would have to approve. And you can see the cost in front of you. The base fee stays the same. The emergency fee goes up $5 per call. And then again, like I said, you'd have to vote on the 17th or in December if you want to wait. That's up to you.
I think, I mean, it's like almost no increase, and we're using them for years. So I would propose to move it right to council, like you said. Jack, do you have an opinion on that?
I've no problem with that.
Okay,
No.
I'll put it on, I'm sorry. I'll put it on the 17th then, and that's all I have to report.
All right, so next we have the utility and other bills from the fire department. So everything seems to be routine. I'm questioning, what is that fire relief, 29,000? I wonder if anyone knows. I mean, Jimmy left, so Steve, do you know what that means?
I think that's the pass-through, if I'm not mistaken, that comes from the state. I'd have to double check that though. I don't have my stuff up. Go ahead, Jimmy. Is that what it is?
Yeah, I'm 99% positive that's what it is, Steve. That's the relief money that comes from the state, comes into your budget, and then the borough issues the fire department a check.
We
Okay,
usually
sounds good.
show
I
it
was
as a
just-
revenue and an expenditure in the budget.
yes, I remember that. And the amount sounds about right, but I remember too. I think it changes a little bit every year. So yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
So Jack, do you have any comments on that? On the
No,
whole-
nothing, as long as we know what that is, and it's the pass-through.
Okay, so we're good with that. Next is EMS report, which we have attached, seems to be pretty much routine. And committee business report, we have cameras on Ardmore and PennDOT. I believe, Chuck, were you going to do some research on that, or Dave? I'm not sure.
I don't think it was me. If it was, I didn't do it.
No,
I
I meant
think you
the
were-
Chief
I think you
Williams.
I think you were asking Dave too, if I'm not mistaken, Mr. Oberdinger.
Yeah, I asked Dave earlier when he was still in the meeting, and he said no, he doesn't remember. So I don't think I think it should be Dave doing that, huh?
He has contacts at PennDOT. That's why
Yeah.
I
but
thought I had
Dave-
emailed him based on your discussion last meeting. I thought I'd emailed him to go ahead with that. I'll double check with him.
Yeah, I asked him, I texted him at the beginning of the meeting when he was still there, and he said he didn't do anything, he doesn't remember that. So we have to remind him. Because basically we were talking about if we can actually program the light to kind of slow down. If someone goes more than 40 miles an hour, he will hit the next red light, if we can do that or not, if we're allowed to do that and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, the next item is the deer bow hunting complaint we had during the last business meeting. And I invited the resident, Mr. Koch, to attend the committee. So Steve, can you please elevate him to panel so that he can talk to us?
Mr. Cook is on here now. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you very much. I had to get my video and unmute.
Yeah, you're good.
And so thank you very much for having me and for allowing me to speak. And I've tried to prepare so that I can be quite efficient. And I know, and by the way, I just would like to say that I really respect the type of work and the way you have been working this evening. It's been an opportunity for me to sit in on your committee meetings, and I appreciate you more for having been here. I am here just about this one issue, and I'm a forest ranger's son. I'm an amateur wildlife naturalist. I have done a lot. I've worked with Department of Natural Resources people in different states. I have read pretty nearly all of the wolf research. I have read pretty nearly, I shouldn't say all, but I've read a lot of the white-tailed deer research. So I come to you with a certain amount of knowledge. And also my father was a forest ranger, and he raised us to hunt and fish. And so I'm not anti-hunting, and I feel like I understand what I'm talking about. So, and I am here to protest the ordinance that apparently was passed by the Forest Hills Borough to allow hunting within the borough. And this has been called to my attention because there is a hunter persistently, I like to say he's behind my house, which is only a slight exaggeration because it's 2 yards over. He has permission to be there by the landowner of this empty lot, but he is essentially behind my house. I took it up with the police department, who tried to be helpful, but said the jurisdiction was the game commission. I took it up with the game warden, who simply assured me the man could very easily be 50 yards from the corner of my house where he was. And I want to just make 3 points about this. And one point is, this type of hunting will not change the deer population. And there's a lot of research to clarify that. When you hunt deer, let's say relatively lightly, which is what this is, you're not killing, massive numbers of deer, they simply replenish in a very short time. And it's probably one of the things that really worked for the Native Americans. They would hunt a few deer, the deer would replenish, they had something that could have gone on forever. I'll just give you one statistic. Deer that are not being hunted, and so they recognize they're living in peace, have a twinning rate of 14%. Deer that are being hunted, as soon as they recognize they're being hunted, their twinning rate goes up to 34%. And so when you hunt lightly, they just replenish. And so this is a step that has been taken to solve a problem that will not in any way, shape, or form solve the problem. And that's point number 1. And I think that's a waste of everybody's time and a very unfortunate step. However, the main thing is related to this Committee for Public Safety. Point 2 is that you're endangering the human citizens of Forest Hills by doing this. If they're taking a walk in Forest Hills Borough property and there's a bow hunter above them in a tree, they are in immediate danger. I checked this, I had this sense, and I checked it out with a very veteran hunter that I know. If this guy is down the hill with a crossbow and he fires it toward my place, it would penetrate the brick of my house. That's just how powerful and strong a crossbow is. It's been made to function almost like a rifle. And there are bystander fatality statistics for hunting that is done in the wild woods. And there always are statistics to report. And of course, the hunting lobby says there aren't very many bystander fatalities, and that's true. But let me tell you, when you put somebody with that kind of weapon that I just described in close quarters, and my street is close quarters, we're right next to each other, just like everybody in Forest Hills, you are going to get bystander fatalities. And let me just pause and ask us to consider for a moment, how many bystander fatalities would be okay? And the answer is 0. No bystander fatalities are okay. And it will happen with this ordinance. If you have somebody with a crossbow behind somebody else's house, what happens in the woods, and I know this because I walked the woods with my father, the forest ranger, and the game warden, his friend, is that people shoot without knowing what they're shooting at. It just happens. If you imagine every hunter is a responsible, careful hunter, that's like imagining every car driver is a responsible, careful driver. It is simply not true. And you might say, well, those car drivers are still on the road. Well, yes, they are. But in this case, that hunter is down there because of, and I'm sorry if this feels like I'm pointing a finger, but I don't know how else to say it. This hunter is down there because of you. He's down there because you allowed him there. You essentially put him there. And so I'm in danger. Maybe it's not, maybe the percentage of my danger isn't that high, but it would be no danger if you didn't have this ordinance. And the ordinance is a mistake as a problem-solving step because it does not solve the problem. So I can't send grandkids down the hill to play in the woods behind my house. If I had a brown dog, I sure wouldn't take my brown dog down the hill or let it run down the hill, and all of that sort of thing. So just to close, let me say that this is maybe less important, but it's also a quality of life issue. this season lasts virtually the entire autumn. Bow hunting season is a really long season. And I see this guy goes down the hill from his truck, less, maybe half a block from my house. So I see his truck every day. He's there, and he's there lots of days. And he probably won't get a deer because deer are really smart and they know when something is different in the woods. But anyway, so let me see. There was a last thing I was going to say, and thank you so much for your patience. So essentially, my house is not my house, and my property is not free for me to use for the entire autumn, one of the most beautiful seasons of the year. And it's because you have allowed and assisted and supported somebody to go down behind my house with a deadly weapon and sit there. And if you read the regulations, they can actually sit there all day and all night. Hunting is allowed. And further, if I ever go down the woods to check on where he is, I can be taken to court for harassing the hunter. So all of the rules and regulations are, against us having a quality of life. And I guess those are my points. And thank you so much.
Okay, thank you for your concern, and I'm taking it definitely seriously. And I actually I was 2 years ago when that ordinance was implemented. I think it was 2018, a little bit more than 2 years. That ordinance only covers all parks. You're talking about a private property, not Forest Hills property. Is that correct?
Yes, and the guy told me that he had permission of the owner to be there, and that's all he needed.
But our ordinance, like you're saying, our ordinance is at fault. Our ordinance is actually only covering activities in borough parks. So I have to do some more deeper research. I don't know. Our ordinance is definitely not the reason why this hunter is there, because our ordinance is for borough parks. They're big, and there are some requirements about how big the property has, the park has to be. If it's obviously a playground, people wouldn't be allowed to hunt there either. So I have to do more research, but it doesn't seem like our borough property, our ordinance is at fault, because that only covers the big parks, behind the Resting House Rec Center and so on. So can I just ask you for your address, because I would like to, I have to dig more details into it.
But I just say that the police have said to me that he's allowed there because of the ordinance. So there's a misunderstanding.
Yes, that's what I have to investigate, because I don't.
But even if we were to arrive at a point where this guy was not allowed to be there, I would make the same points about the public parks and Forest Hills Borough property.
Fair enough, but even the ordinance I read seems to be a little bit, it says you have to follow the rules and regulations, but I want to know what are the rules and regulations. So I have to do more research on that one either. I do agree, but your particular issue seems to be not, I need to do more research basically. I do take your concern seriously, because I was not there on council more than 2 years ago, but I think just, I don't want to punt the thing. I think our ordinance is not at fault, but I still would like to research that issue. So I would recommend maybe if you come back, if you have time, next month's public safety meeting, hopefully we have more information on that. All right, anyone else has a comment on that? Jack?
No, I make two remarks. It looks like we're, the resident, and I thank him for his thoughts, that ordinance may not be relevant or germane to his particular issue. He, of course, objects to that ordinance. Let's first of all find out what law is germane to his concern, and that's going to be something that, again, will go through our legal counsel. We can't rely on, it's not the police's obligation to know those details. Second, as far as the present ordinance and whether that should be reviewed, I would suggest tabling that question until we move into the spring, the next council. We're only 1 month away from a reorganization. We'll have 3 new members. At present, the council's makeup has not changed except for your taking Nina's seat. So probably addressing the present ordinance within this council is probably a little unwise.
I agree with you, Jack. And I think we definitely need more research. I don't think we can we wouldn't even have enough time to do anything this year anyway. But yes, I agree. We need to do way more research. And Mr. Koch, could you please give me your address so I know that I can research that as well, what property? Because I think the size of the property should have an issue as well behind your house.
The size, did you say?
No, like, what's your address? You
Yes,
don't, you
yes.
can just,
Yes, and I'm sorry I didn't give my address first. It's 120 Parise Road, Parise Road.
Okay.
Um,
sounds good.
And thank you so much for your attention. And if I could just say, I think this is a matter of some urgency, and I think whoever is whatever is causing this hunter to be allowed to be behind my house, I think it's a borough concern, whether it's covered by that ordinance
You want to
or
research
not.
it, but
Yeah.
we have to,
Yes. And the
we
last
have
thing
to
I
do
would
things
say,
properly and legally, or we can't just jump.
absolutely, I totally understand that. And if I could just say, I think this is a matter of some urgency, and I hope you will carry it forward with some urgency, because if it happens that a bystander is killed by somebody's crossbow, and that could happen, frankly, any day now, it will be a huge issue, and it will be brought forward that that allowing hunting right next to somebody's house was a horrible idea. You know, it will become a very large issue, and of course, that is to say, it will also be a very sad moment. So thank you so much for indulging me.
You're welcome. But like I said, I would recommend you to come back next month and we can hopefully know more. Thank you.
Yes, I will.
Oh yeah, what we have next? Chief's report. Chief Williams, please.
Thank you, Mr. Erweldinger. First off, I don't know if you've been on the Ardmore in the last week or so, but I mean, it's getting a little messy down there on the eastbound side with this new construction being done for the gas company. And this is going to go on for approximately a month and a half, maybe more. So prepare yourself for some delays on the eastbound side between 9 a.m. and 3 p.m. for about the next month and a half with this insertion of this new line. Again, you know, this is totally separate from the other work, the cul-de-sac work and the other tree work. This is just a preliminary gas line that's being put in from about where Drew's is down to just past Howard Hanna. But again, it's going to cross the Ardmore as well, which is going to cause even more delays, even on the westbound side. So just to give everybody a little warning, that's where we are, and it's going to be a while. Secondly, we had a very successful Halloween trick or treat this year. There were a lot of children and family out about the neighborhood. So with the weather being so favorable, I guess everybody decided this was their opportunity.
Thank you. And I think that's it for public safety. Jack, do you have any comment? Frank?
Nothing else.
Frank has a comment.
Yeah, I just want to Chuck's point, the amount of traffic that's going on right now in light of the gas line work. We really need to think through and coordinate with PennDOT, and as we prepare for this culvert project that's going to be very disruptive along Ardmore Boulevard. We really need to go out of our way to manage a communication plan to our residents as well as the folks that Ardmore Boulevard, and be diligent about posting detours, giving them alternative options to kind of go around it, because it's going to have a very significant impact on our main corridor up and down Ardmore Boulevard. So I would assume that we can maybe discuss it a little bit further on committee of the whole, and it's really going to fall on next year's council to kind of manage that. But I mean, if I'm not mistaken, I believe that project is still slated to begin in 2022, correct? Or has that been pushed out? I thought it was still 2022.
It is 2022, Frank. This is all the prep work to get in place before the paving and the culvert.
Right. So I think we really just need to kind of coordinate as best we can in alignment with PennDOT, and just make sure that we're communicating this project to all of our residents so that they're aware of the impact it's going to have on their daily commutes. Probably coordinate it with the school district. to try and kind of mitigate the impact it's going to have.
I do actually believe PennDOT will properly, but we need to double check, do regional detours. You know, like when they closed that bridge in Rankin, I mean, they did pretty good publicity about that bridge being closed, but they need to divert via Monroeville, I guess, a big chunk, you know, or Turnpike even. People go all the way down Route 30. And I mean, but we have to double check with PennDOT. Patty has a comment too.
Yes, we are going to be meeting with PennDOT on a regular basis for the Complete Streets policy. The Planning Commission will begin those meetings in December 1st. And I am hoping that we can talk to Heidi, who is the DOT planning person, about including our plans for sidewalk expansion in the business district in that paving project. I don't know if we'll be able to intercept it in time or not, but we're going to try.
Okay.
Thank you, Marcus. That's all I wanted to add.
All right. I think anyone else has any comment for public safety?
Nope.
Okay, Steve, I think we're done.
All right, the next meeting is Tuesday night. I'll send something out. I may not be here on Monday, so if that's the case, I will send something out probably Tuesday morning to you via Zoom. Have a good night, everyone. See, Mr. Tomasic has something.
Before you end, I just want to say, remember that on the, what is it, 17th, we will have an in-person executive session for legal and personnel issues.
Thank you, Bill.
Anything else?